Is your carrot harvest less than amazing? I'm amazed every time we harvest carrots. I want my carrot harvest to last from one harvest all the way to the next harvest, so that's a year. We harvested over 50 pounds of carrots out of a 24-foot bed. Some of the things I want to share with you, you might never have heard before. I had to learn by trial and error because when I started my organic garden, there was no such thing as Google and all those confusing, conflicting ideas on the perfect way to grow carrots. I'll show you how to choose the right carrots for where you live, how to plant them, how to care for them, how to harvest them, and even maybe you can save some seeds. I can't wait to share it all with you so you can have an amazing carrot harvest too.
All I have needs I have not provided.
There's so many different carrots to choose from. How do you know which ones are best? Unfortunately, neither one of my favorites that work well for me are in this catalog, so I prefer to go online. Baker Creek may have Imperator and Scarlet Nantes. It's just not in this catalog. Another reason why I like to check online is because I cruise through people's comments. So I'm looking for a variety that people from the South say they did well with. That's how I determine all my vegetable varieties, and I've been able to narrow all those varieties down to what really works for me. I like experiments, but I also like to be successful. My favorite is Imperator and Scarlet Nantes. And the reason I like them is they grow big, and I get a lot of carrot for all my trouble. I've tried the other varieties, and they're fun, but when it comes down to it, I want a lot of harvest. I like it when I can weigh 50 pounds of carrots at the end of the harvest. The last part of my spring garden is almost ready to be harvested, and I'm looking forward to the fall planting already. You gotta plan ahead, so order those carrot seeds now. Once you know the kind of carrots that you want to grow, look on the packet and you'll see how many days it takes from seed to time to harvest. I suggest that you add a couple of weeks to that because it may take a bit longer, just depending on where you live. I sow my seeds in the early fall, and even if that packet says ready in 75 days, it's actually 120 days before mine are ready because I grow mine through the winter and the days are shorter, so it takes a longer time for that carrot to grow to maturity. You might be planting in the early spring, and wherever you live, you might have really long summer days. Those carrots might be ready even before the time that the packet says. The reason I say add a couple of weeks to it, you want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room in case there's a freeze that comes through. Carrots can withstand frost. They can withstand a light freeze that's only a few hours. Anything more than that, they're going to die off. So that's why I say add a couple weeks to give yourself some wiggle room. If the freeze comes through earlier than you anticipated, you still have young carrots and you can pull them. If you live in an area where the winters are fairly mild and the ground doesn't freeze, you might be able to store your carrots right where they were growing and go out and harvest them whenever you feel like having them for dinner. I can't take that risk. I live in Florida. The ground is going to be too wet and it will soon be too warm. Those carrots need to be stored where it's cool and moist only, not wet, not real dry. This is the bed where I'm going to be planting carrots 4 months from now. Plant your carrots in the full sun. I don't step on my beds, but I still need to loosen up the soil. So what I'm going to do is rake back the leaves from here, and I'll go through with a pitchfork. Even if you have a raised bed, use a pitchfork and loosen up your soil. The carrots have got to have loose soil to grow their roots down deep. If you don't do that, your carrots will grow down, hit a hard surface, and then their legs will spread out. Or it'll just stunt their growth and they won't get big. Carrots do not need rich soil. Stay away from heavy nitrogen fertilizer. If you want to amend your bed, go with a fertilizer that's high in phosphorus and potassium. That's what good, healthy roots need. If you use a fertilizer that's heavy in nitrogen, your carrots might grow a lot of little teeny offshoots, making them look like a hairy monster. I suggest that you use bone meal. Bone meal's high in potassium and also phosphorus. Sprinkle your bone meal right over the top of your dirt. Work it in with your spade or the pitchfork, and that's good enough. It'll disperse through the season. As far as planning ahead, I have the perfect solution for you, and I'm going to give it to you for free. I have 2 different styles of garden grids that you can print off. I'm not even going to ask for your email address. Now, the link is going to be in the description below, and when you click through, it may ask you something like, are you asking permission? You don't ask permission. When you click through, there should be a little print icon, and you'll click on that, and you can print as many copies as you want. And I suggest that you print at least 2. Keep one for a master copy, and then fill in the other copy. I have 2 different varieties here, Scarlet Nantes and Imperator. As soon as I get seeds in the mail, I put them in a quart Ziploc bag, and then I put that quart Ziploc bag full of seeds inside a gallon Ziploc bag amongst other seeds, and then I store them in the freezer. They will not keep their viability here in Florida if you don't do that. That's probably going to do, I'm going to guess, 3 feet double row at least. I'm planting them approximately, some of them are dropping here about a 1/4 inch apart from each other. Any thicker than that, and you're going to be out here all day long thinning them out. The way I'm doing this is I'm rolling them in my fingers like this. I am not covering up the seeds, not on purpose. If your soil isn't fine like mine, then sift some of your soil. You don't need a lot. Then you sprinkle that sifted soil right over the top of your seed, and then you can water it in lightly, just like I'm showing you what I do. The action of that water is going to bring the soil, the sandy soil, right over the top of the seeds. You're going to need to mist your new bed of carrots at least once a day. Try to check them twice. You may have to mist them again, morning and evening, depending on how much sun and how hot it is. One of the common mistakes that gardeners make is inconsistent watering. I use the rule of knuckle. You poke your finger down as far as your knuckle. If it's dry, you water. If it's wet, you don't water, and come back and check in another day or 2. If you are inconsistent in watering your carrots, let's say you let them dry out and then you give them a whole bunch of water day after day, they split, and then they expose that inner core of the carrot. Still edible, but it's not the prettiest carrot in the world. If you let them dry out completely, they'll be stunted, and they'll also be tough and woody, and you can't eat those. So your seedlings have come up, you've been watering consistently, now they're about an inch, inch and a half tall. If they look like a bunch of grass, you sowed too many of them in too small of a space. And it's tedious. You've got to thin them out. But if you don't, you won't have carrots of any size. So that may be your very first thinning out. If you've done that, take a little pair of scissors out there with you and just snip off. It's a lot easier than trying to, get your fingernails around the tiny little seedlings and pull them out. And you might disturb the little seedlings next to it. So if you just snip off the green part, the root part will die and it won't affect the ones that you've left behind. Now that you've thinned out those seedlings, you're going to have 2 more times that you're going to thin them out. So I'm going to give you little snippets of the videos I've already made, the ones with all the details, and I'm going to show you what the first thinning looks like and the second thinning. So just keep this in mind. Rule of finger, rule of thumb. First thinning is rule of finger, the second thinning, rule of thumb. Right here, let's see, 1, 2, 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 10 in just this one little group here. Now I'm going to try my best to leave the biggest ones here and just pull out the teeny tiny ones in between. Just kind of have to separate them out a little bit and determine which ones can go and which ones need to stay there. And pull this one. Look, I already have a teeny tiny baby carrot. Just use your finger as a guide, and that should be good enough. But look here, I'm going to pull this one. And this one. Now, if you make a little hole, just push the dirt up around and they'll be fine. They like to have room to grow. Now, this is the second time that I've come through and thinned these out. The first time I showed you how to do that was when they were very young and they were just too crowded to even make carrots. You can't let them get too crowded. And so at this stage, they need to be thinned out again. I'm just clearing the way so you can see what's going on here. So you see, if I were to leave all of these, at this stage, remember, you've got to have a thumb's width. And you see, these are pretty crowded. I'm going to pull a big one just to make room for the smaller ones. It almost seems counterintuitive, but you'll see, I'm going to space some of these so that the younger ones can continue to grow. And this is a really good sized carrot right here. Look how big that is. And I could leave it in the ground another couple of months and it'll make a gigantic carrot. But I'm going to go ahead and roast that tonight. So what I've got left here, I think these will be okay. This one will be okay. This is, well, it's questionable. And then we've got 3 right here together. I'm going to pull this back one. So here is where I have 3. Okay, see here? 1, 2, 3. These 2 right here, I'm going to leave them. This is the troublemaker right here. It's probably not going to have a carrot. It does have a carrot down in there. Oh, it has a bigger carrot than I thought, and it's already met an obstacle underneath the dirt here. Probably hard ground underneath the bed. That's not a bad sized carrot. Now those 2 have room to continue to grow. When is the best time to harvest carrots? Anytime they're big enough to eat, I like to let mine get as big as possible without going too far. If you leave them in the ground too long, they'll get woody, especially that center core. And actually, they're just inedible that way. My carrots start showing their shoulders. I don't want the sun to hit their shoulders, they'll get sunburned. If I have more time to let them continue to grow without the danger of leaving them in there too long, I'll go ahead and push loose soil up over their shoulders again. And I will keep watering them very gently so that I don't disturb the soil that I just pushed up around them. My grandkids help me every year with the carrot harvest. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I love seeing the look on their face the first time that they ever harvest a carrot. There it is! There it is!
Wow.
Wow, there's a carrot! There's a carrot! Yay! I'm working on a series of workbooks for children to learn about botany. One of them is The Secret of Roots, and one of the things that you use is carrots. Now, this series uses items that you can get from the grocery store, so it's very inexpensive. And the workbook is for you to print off so you can use it over and over again for however many kids you have in your family. So go check it out. It's in my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link in the description below.
Grandma, what if we need another bucket? Then we would.
I don't think you will.
Yeah, we might. We might need another bucket.
Well, keep going.
Ah, yeah.
I'm showing you what's left of my tomatoes because I want you to see this netting. I use netting to keep pests off my tomatoes and off my peas. Now, where I live, I do not have a problem with carrot flies. If I did, this is what I would use. Carrots do not need pollinators, so it's safe to just cover them up with a netting. And be sure you secure the bottom with something heavy so that nothing can go up underneath. Now, I don't think a carrot fly would fly all the way down to the ground and crawl under, but I wouldn't take a chance if it was my carrot crop. My biggest pest to carrots is mole crickets. They eat them when they're sprouting, and then I'll have a gap where everything else came up, but then there's this gap, and then the next day I go out and there's another gap missing. I don't have a real good natural solution to mole crickets. We've had sandhill cranes and cattle egret go through and clean up mole crickets out of our yard, but they don't like to come into my garden for some reason. I guess it's just too many places where they think a predator could hide. Anyway, that's the only natural means I know to get rid of mole crickets. Please comment in the comments below. I would love to hear how you get rid of mole crickets. I'm not infested, but it's enough to take out a few carrots when I'm trying to grow tons of carrots. As I mentioned before, root knot nematode is another, I guess you could call it a pest. It's a little teeny tiny microscopic worm that lives in the soil. There are ways to deter them. I've had great luck with a French marigold, but French marigolds can get huge and they can overtake that space. So if you can interplant them with big plants like bean plants, it works great. But I'm not so sure I want them in with my carrots. So I'm trying a couple of things, and one of them is to grow that mustard and then till it in. I don't till, I turn it in by hand. I've never considered saving carrot seeds, and I've saved a lot of different kinds of seeds. It saves me money, and besides, it's fun. The reason why I don't consider saving carrot seeds, it takes 2 years. The first year they're making the root, the second year they'll send up a seed head, and then you can save some seeds from that. So if you have 2 years, that's great. I don't. But look what I found here amongst the volunteer peanut plants. I found a carrot that was growing in the pathway, and I missed it when I was harvesting the carrots. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it until next year. It's in the pathway. It's not going to interfere with the bed that I'm going to prepare here. I have some parsnips over in my wild corner. They bolted, and I want to show you what that looks like. This is a surprise carrot that came up out of my compost that I was processing right in this area. So I don't know if this is a top that sprouted and kept growing, or if a seed escaped from my bed and got all the way over here. These are parsnips. A friend of mine gave me the tops to some parsnips that had sprouted, and I planted them, and lo and behold, they've made seed heads. This is what you call bolting. So I'm hoping to get some parsnip seeds from here, and I'm assuming that the carrot bolts are going to look like this too. Once you've washed your carrots and let them dry, you've got to get them into a cool place. And for me, that means in the refrigerator. Every few weeks, you need to go in and check your carrots. See here? That little bit of mold right there is going to affect the rest of these carrots in here. See how this one has been affected because that one started to mold? So go through your carrots, pull out any that's got some growth on it. Just check your carrots every now and then and use up the ones that are like this. Just cut that piece out and you're good to go. I have a whole playlist that goes over in detail every stage that I've shared with you today, including how to preserve your carrots, and I share a couple of recipes with you there too. Don't forget, green thumbs up, subscribe, and go through all my playlists. I bet there's something there that you'll find helpful. Thanks for watching.
Great.